Hi guys, my name is Zach Devine. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. If you like what you see in the video, please give it a like and remember to subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks guys. Hi guys, Zach Devine back again with part 2 of our chord spelling series. So we did part 1 and in part 1 we talked basically about our basic musical alphabet, which is just A through G, and we talked about scale degrees and how we would build chords from those scale degrees. So we talked about needing a root, a third, and a fifth. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about the musical alphabet, and we're going to start exploring what's called the circle of fifths, which is just a diagram that helps you understand key signatures and things like that. And then we're going to talk about how we can do the same thing that we did last time in the key of C. We can use the circle of fifths and its ability to help us understand key signatures in order to then build those same chord constructs that we did in the key of C, building our 7 chords that revolve around that key because we're using that scale. Now we're going to be able to do that for any key that we want to. So this lesson will definitely, take us kind of to that next level. Whereas we're not building just in one key, we're able to build chords in any key, and then from that we can then take any keys that we want to combine into different sounds for different songs. So we can have a song that has parts that are in one key and then modulates to another key, so on and so forth. So it's going to be really, really cool, and it'll help you to kind of explore some new stuff. So let's start with the full musical alphabet. So there are 2 sets of notes in the musical alphabet that are only a half step apart, which those notes are B and C and E and F. So if you are moving through your musical alphabet, you hit B, the very next letter name that you're going to encounter is a C. Now you might be thinking, obviously, this next letter in the alphabet, but what we need to understand is that besides those 2 letter sets, B and C and E and F, every other letter name has what's called an accidental between it. Accidental I'm using as kind of a loose term, but we'll call it an accidental for now, and that is a sharp or a flat. And what that means is to get us from the letter A to the letter B is what's called a whole step. We break things down into steps and half steps, tones and semitones, if you will. So on piano, a full step is 2 key spaces, including black keys. So if we're at a C and we move 1 key space, 2 key spaces, that puts us at a D. So that means that C and D are a whole step apart. On guitar, same kind of premise. If this is a C here, 2 frets instead of key spaces will bring us the next letter name up, which is a D. So notice though we have that note in between that is a half step. So we've got whole steps and we've got half steps. And that's what we mean when we say from B to C is a half step and from E to F is a half step. So if I'm here at a B, and if I'm at a B here and I need to get to a C, notice you can really see it easily on the piano because there's no black key there, right? So we see, I don't know if you can see, but it would just go B, goes straight to C, and then E here goes straight to F. There's no black key there, and we move straight to F. On guitar, it's 1 fret as opposed to 2 frets. From here, from B, that's how we get to C, and then if we're here at E, that's how we would get to F. Just a half step or 1 fret, okay? So every other letter name is going to be a full step apart. So if I'm here at A and I need to get to B, that's 2 frets instead of 1. If I'm on the piano and I'm here at an A and I need to get to B, I have to skip over this black key. So that's 1, 2 key spaces that I moved, okay? So that is where accidentals come into play, sharps or flats. So in between A and B, which are a full step apart, there is a half step note. It's very easy to see on keyboard because it's that black key right there. And that black key would be what we would refer to as an A sharp or a B flat. So that means, that brings us to one more phrase that we'll learn about today, which is called enharmonic. Enharmonic is 1 tone or sound that has 2 names that are attributed to it. So A sharp and B flat are both that note. That note is, here's A sharp, here's B flat. It's the same note. There's no difference. So what we need to understand is that sometimes there will be different letter name or different names assigned to certain notes. So if you're in the key of, let's say we're in the key of E major has D sharp in its key signature. If we're in the key of C flat major, C flat would be that same note. We wouldn't call it a D sharp if we're in a flat key. No flat key can have sharps, no sharp key can have flats. So those are exclusive to whatever key you're in, okay? So if we're going straight through the musical alphabet now, we would see A sharp or B flat, B would move straight to C because there's only a half step there. C, after C we would have C sharp or D flat, and then we would have D, and then D sharp or E flat, and then E natural, and then E natural would move straight to F, and then we would have F sharp or G flat, G, and then G sharp or A flat. And that essentially is our musical alphabet. Now, that may seem a little confusing at first, but once we start using the musical alphabet, you're going to see there's 12 tones there, and it's all just a matter of how we're combining those 12 tones for whatever key that we need to be playing in. All right, so last time we looked at C major, and we determined that using our spelling of root, third, and fifth for each scale degree, once again the scale degrees were C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, we ended up with a C major, a D minor, an E minor, an F major, a G major, an A minor, and a B diminished. Okay? Or if we're on the keyboard, it's actually really easy because it's laid out in a line: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and then we're back to C. Okay? And if you're playing on a piano, you could invert those as well. So you could have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and then you'd be back to C. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can approach that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at the circle of fifths, and the circle of fifths is going to empower us to be able to move into different keys. So what we see as with the circle of fifths is we start in the key of C, and we normally start talking about things in the key of C because C major has no sharps or flats, meaning all those 12 notes that we looked at, we don't worry about any of the sharps or flats if we're in the key of C. We just have C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. So those are all natural notes. There's no sharps or flats. And then what we're going to do with the circle of fifths is we're going to see that if we count around in fifths, so if we start at the key of C, you can think of it like a clock. So C is at 12 o'clock. So if we look at C having no sharps or flats, if we count around a fifth, meaning we go C, D, E, F, G, just like we did to spell the chord when we were figuring out what the fifth was. If we count around a fifth, we would end up at G. So what that means is G will now have one sharp, and that sharp will be F sharp. Okay, and the way that we know that is we would use the circle, or the order of sharps in order to figure that out. So we've got the order of sharps and the order of flats, depending on what we're trying to figure out, whether it's a sharp key or a flat key. So we're going to do a separate discussion about the circle of fifths as a whole and really kind of break it down. But for now, we're just going to use it very, very basically to get from point A to point B to figure out how to play in different keys. So when we see the circle, we're seeing it laid out going clockwise in fifths or counterclockwise in fourths. A lot of times you'll actually hear it referred to as the circle of fifths, circle of fourths. Some people will call it the cycle of fifths, cycle of fourths. But it's talking about the same thing. So what that's telling us is it's giving us the key signature. It's the defining characteristic by sharps and flats of a key. Okay, so when we are thinking about a key, we want to think in that major key, those 7 letter names for the key of C: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So if we then move to G, G now has one sharp, and it's F sharp. So circle of fifths always tells us the answer to key signature. If I ask what is the key signature, that's 2 questions in one. That is, how many sharps or flats are in a key, and what are those sharps or flats, okay? So key of G, one space over from C, it's a fifth over, has one sharp, and it's F sharp. So that means we're still going to play all natural notes in the key of G, except for that one note, which is F sharp instead of F. So if we start here at a G, we would have G, A, B, C, D, E, and now we have F sharp, and then we're back to G. So notice if I played all natural notes again, now I end up with that note, which is an F natural, which is a flat 7. Okay, so, and we'll talk more about that because technically that's another, that's what's called a mode, and so we'll get all into that kind of stuff in another series. But it's enough that for now we understand that once we start adding, once we start trying to move around to different keys, we're going to have to add sharps or flats in order to keep the distances between those notes the same. So the major scale has what's called a step sequence. All scales have a step sequence, but the major scales step sequence, in other words, it has a pattern of whole steps and half steps that if you follow that pattern or step sequence will always end up playing a major scale, is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So you can think of it as 2 whole steps and a half, and then 3 whole steps and a half. So if we're looking at that, we have G, for instance, we have from G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, and now E to F sharp is a whole step, and then F sharp back to G is our remaining half step, okay? So if you remember that step sequence, that's also another very, very easy shortcut in order to, you know, if I say, hey, we're gonna play a song in the key of D, and you're like, I don't know D major, if you know whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and you know how to find a D, so if I find a D right here, I can go D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, half step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, whole step to C sharp, and half step back to D. And now I know how to play a D major scale because I know that step sequence. I didn't know, you know, for instance, if I didn't know ahead of time that D major had 2 sharps and they were F sharp and C sharp, then I would instantly know how to find that, okay? So what we're gonna do real quick as a last thing is now we're gonna go to the key of G and we're gonna figure out those 7 chords just like we did for the key of C, except now we have a sharp to think about, so we're going to have to apply that to all of the chords as we go through the scale degrees, okay? So starting once again from the first scale degree, which is now G, we're going to have our root, third, and fifth is what we're talking about. We're going to have G, B, and D, and that would give us a G major. And then we're going to have A, C, E, which would be A minor, B, D, and what would normally be B, D, F. Now we're thinking key signature. We're thinking it's got that one sharp, which is F sharp. So now we're thinking B, D, F sharp. That gives us a B minor. Fourth chord would be C, E, G, which would be C major. Fifth chord would be D, F sharp, A, which would be D major. Sixth chord would be E, G, B, which would be E minor. And then our seventh chord would be F sharp, A, C, which would be an F sharp diminished. Okay? So those are the 7 chords, just like we figured out for the key of C. Now those are the 7 chords for the key of G. And once again, like we talked about in the last lesson, the 1, 4, and 5 chords will always be major, the 2, 3, and 6 chords will always be minor, and the 7 chord will always be diminished when we're dealing with triads. In the next lesson, we're going to start dealing with 7th chords, and then that slightly changes, and we have more notes to think about, but we have much richer, more dynamic sounds and colors that we can use as well. So that is lesson 2. Thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys for lesson 3. Thanks, guys.